we have some of the best speakers from academia, industry, and I look forward to listening to them, benefiting from them, refining my thoughts, and I'm sure that it will be enormously successful. We have looked at the papers and we are quite, enthusiastic or at least hopeful that some of the papers will be able to publish in a special edition. I'll request Professor Kumar to allow us to consider it as a part of a special edition for this conference for Journal of Entrepreneurship. Or some of the papers will be able to publish it there. Entrepreneurship has been gaining ground, not only in IIMs, but in other institutions too. And I'm very happy that IIM Ranchi has prioritized entrepreneurship not only for optional courses, but for compulsory courses as entrepreneurship is the need of the hour. I remember about 25 years ago when we used to talk of entrepreneurship courses or announce programs on entrepreneurship for faculty, we had to struggle hard to get participants. Today, about 50 to 60 faculty development programs are being organized by one department, that is DST alone, coupled with several other institutions like AICT, UGC. They have been supporting faculty development programs, and we are getting good number of participants. Many institutions, they have introduced compulsory courses. I have been associated with this course for about 15, 16 years at Ahmedabad IIM. And my experience has been that management students, they have been taking great interest, and many of them have created their own ventures successfully. EDII has prioritized entrepreneurship research, and we introduced our own conference way back in 1994, which was the first program. The architect of this was Professor Vijendra Tripathi, the first PGP chair of IIM Ahmedabad, a noted business historian, and also the founding editor of Journal of Entrepreneurship. And since then, every second year, EDII has been organizing this conference. And the next conference we are going to organize in February during 25th to 27th. As of now, we have announced it as a physical face-to-face event, and we are keeping our fingers crossed, looking at the situation. But hopefully, we'll be able to organize this. And I take this opportunity to invite all of you, particularly IIM Ranchi team, to be part of that. And also all those researchers, scholars, those who are here, to contribute papers, to consider contributions to this conference, and the selected papers again will be published in Journal of Entrepreneurship. We feel that entrepreneurship is not just a career vocation. Entrepreneurship is a state of mind. And that is how we need entrepreneurs in several fields of life. Almost every field of life it requires, every walk of life requires entrepreneurs. And that is why I'm very happy to see the program schedule here, that entrepreneurship has been woven in different sectors. And also there is a focus, there is a paper on intrapreneurship, which is very, very important for us. And I look forward to this conference, and I'm sure that this will be very successful, and we will continue to work together for ensuring this kind of event successfully being organized at institutions, both the institutions, whether it is IIMs or EDI or any other places. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving this opportunity to me and my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shukla, for your kind words. And we look forward as an institute to partner with EDI in the long run and come up with some more programs as we progress further in 2021. Now, I would like to request Professor Krishna Kumar, former Director IIM Kozhikode, to deliver his keynote address. He's going to talk about strategic management and entrepreneurship for Atmanirbhar Bharat. So I'm going to request Professor Krishna Kumar to deliver his address. Over to you, sir.
Go ahead. What is the revised time today?
Sir, you have
37.
right, sir.
So I go up to 57.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Good morning, everybody. Dr. Sahai, Professor Shukla, Professor Shailen Singh, Rohit, and so many friends all over the country who are watching this program. Never I had dreamt that someday we'll have this kind of convention where sitting at our respective homes also we can participate. This has been a dream, and I'm very grateful to Professor Shailen Singh for really letting it happen. Now, since time is short and Rohit told me that it is limited to 20 minutes, I am trying to make it 15 minutes so that 5 minutes are available for discussions. Uh, this topic is so contemporary and relevant that I find uh, there could be no better occasion than this convention to discuss the issue. And as a curtain raiser for that, Professor Shukla, I tried to be an entrepreneur, an untrained entrepreneur, when yesterday I launched a dhaba. And it was just to experience what it means to be entrepreneur. And will you succeed? Will you not succeed? Only time will tell. But the small issues that we face on the way, how to handle them, and how SM education helps in that. I remember when we conducted first program on entrepreneurship at IIM Lucknow, Professor Akbar was with me, and we found if there is a person, if there is a group of people whom SM is extremely relevant, is entrepreneurs, because they will suffer if they fail. And SM is the only subject which makes them take the rings and not to fail. Over the years, I experienced there were certain pitfalls in SM literature which often leads to failure of expertise. So with the permission of Professor Rohit Kumar and Professor Shailen Singh, it's not a reflection of 30 years. It's a reflection of 60 years of literature, as I found how SM is going to be extremely critical and useful for Atmanirbhar Bharat. So instead of all the 31 slides, I thought I will show only 2 slides. The slide number 3 and slide number 30. Rohit, is it possible to share? Slide number 3. Slide number 3 of PPT. Slide number 3. Previous one. Slide number 3. Slide number 2. Previous one.
KK, the numbering may not be tallying. Can you do it yourself?
Everything will go all right.
Second slide.
Numbering is very correct. Slide number 2. Yes. we had Ansoff in 60s and Hughes in 70s, and Peter Thomas and Robert Waterman in 77, in 78, and then Brooke and Josh in 84. So these people have kept on enriching the SM literature for making study formulation and a success. But as a student, are you able to hear me? Are you people able to hear me? Are you able to hear me? Rohit? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir, we're able to hear you.
Very good.
Why don't you give the thing to share?
Shasa, for a while, hold the suggestion to the end. Otherwise, I will digress totally. Okay. So, on the basis of that and my personal experience and case writing of Sputnik India, Apollo Hospital, etc., and working at IIM Lucknow, including launch of SM Forum, and then at IMK, I felt there are certain gaps which need to be filled. And therefore, after group model, I have tried to add something from my side, which is available in these slides, those of which they can see. Then came Michael Porter, and the tremendous contribution that he has made, especially when he launched the book Competitive Advantage. That is biggest work that I find he has, and that is the biggest challenge and problem that it created. Because that has led to focusing on competitive strategy, forgetting many aspects of SM. And therefore, with a caution, we use Michael Porter, take good points of that, add our experience, and make a comprehensive model to appreciate the challenges ahead. And then, out of the experience that I had at IMK especially, I added some tips for managers. Now, basically, now, can you take to slide number 30? Slide number 30. Slide number 30. 30. Scroll down, scroll down. Scroll down, 30. We are at slide number 11, go to 30, 30. Rohit, you have used the previous version, not the one I had suggested to use. You have used the previous version, which was in 1 minute earlier to this version. Anyway, I'll tell you, I have in that slide 3 things. What are the pitfalls? Number 1, the strategic management literature still continues to be weak in terms of strategy implementation. And therefore, by default, we'll end up teaching strategy formulation and not considering strategy implementation issue as integral part of strategy formulation itself. That is, unless major tasks and challenges of strategy implementation have not been considered in formulation itself, before you choose the strategy, before you exercise the strategy option, you are going to be in for a serious problem. A lot of not gaps, the valleys will come on the way which you will not be able to cross if you are not able to visualize the study implementation issues at the time of formulation itself. Number two, the second thing that I found, our focus after my reporter work has given a clarity that we are focusing our education to half the portion only. If you can take one slide up, yes, I don't have command over my own presentation. If it allow me to move it, go up, 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 up. Yeah, yes, this diagram. Just a minute. This diagram below that. Yeah, just about. Yes, this one. Yes, yes. Now, what happened after liberalization of economy? India has started open economy, and the whole system of IIM and IIT is focusing on the other half, the second half of Michael Porter's framework. That is manufacture and sell, manufacture and sell, manufacture and sell. The left part, create, think and design and create, is not being focused as much as it is being done in practice. So academics is focusing on right-hand side, practice wants left-hand side. And there's a big problem that we face. The big corporates which are there, they are focusing on right, but entrepreneurs can't afford to do that. And unless and until you focus on left, you will not be able to even visualize the tasks which are going to bite you when you start implementation. Second thing, which is a corollary, we are underestimating the task of mobilizing resources. There are 6 kinds of resources which are required, and we are focusing on financial and physical infrastructure more than others. And human resource remains, with due respect to all the behavioral scientists, human resource management continues to be a very, very limited focus. It's a number, not the full thing. What is a person can deliver? The case writing of the Scooters India, 800 people out of job, and the organization moves forward much faster. So is it number game? And then I find more important is not apparent resources, operant resources. We are focusing on apparent resources. I have 5 classrooms. Are they working? There are 25 faculty members. Are they delivering? There are 5,000 workers. Are they delivering? Or they only headcount? So an organization with lesser number of apparent resources can outshine many other organizations which have huge apparent resources but very little operant resources. So the key of what makes people push and deliver the life in SM is often missed in our discussing SM. There is a life. We have a human body, but the moment Atma goes, it's dead. So where is that Atma? And it is this which drives. It is this brain which brings solution. It is not the limbs alone which can make. So our focus has to be on totality, end to end. If you say, we would like to be entrepreneur, from left-hand side, design to all that resources that you will need. To last, that is the customer, and whether the customer accepts the product and pays and uses and feels satisfied. That is the entire spectrum is job of SM. For execution, we divide in parts. But the job of strategic manager is not focusing on one and say, I formulate corporate strategy and implement corporate strategy. Number two. Number three, which I find is even more glaring and useful going to be in years to come, with what Professor Murthy had told me and what Professor P.K. Prahlad had told me, that what their teachers told them, not to carry only Harvard material to teach in India. Go to the field, see India, develop literature, meaningful literature, and then teach. Then your teaching will be relevant, appreciated by the people, and will leading to management practice. So these three pitfalls I find, which are major pitfalls, and in any of these pitfalls, if you fall, the whole investment that we have gets stuck. And it is not just banking non-performing assets, it's the whole country's resource non-performing asset which gets affected. And therefore, the management control system of Anthony comes very handy in hand in that. And if you are still not able to get a solution to your problem, just revert back to the last, that is burnout. If you are not able to find solution in any of the management literature, just go and read functions of executive. You will be able to lay your fingers pinpointedly where is the problem in my mind. And then, right, if you can go to the next slide. Next slide. Yes. One thing which I realized, which had been a matter which is not drawing attention, is apparent versus apparent resources. Second thing is, which people will laugh, augment resources by exploiting them. You mean we'll augment faculty resources by exploiting faculty? No, by exploiting their competence, by letting them perform. The more they perform, the more they learn. And that is why I say augment resources by exploiting them. Because every new experience, every new challenge that you make leads to enormous learning. And that adds to your asset, human resources. And therefore, saying that I'm optimally utilize my asset is an utopian, if not outright idiotic expression. Optimizing is not possible because when current resources are being optimized, new resources are getting generated. And they go unnoticed. And therefore, something which could lead to a new strategy doesn't take it. Next slide, please. This expression I found, switch on the light. Everybody completes his job. And I found in Calicut, the whole project, everything is all right. Then you ask, okay, if guest house is ready, can I go there and stay at night? No, sir. Why? So the toilet is not working. What is not working in the toilet? So the sewage is not connected to septic tank. Okay. And the water supply is still, the pipe is missing. And so electric connection has been done. But inspector certificate is required before we can switch off our generator to the connection. So what is there? Unless and until you measure the success of performance of a strategy in final terms, if you have made this guest house for guests, can guests stay there tonight? If not, the whole investment and all your efforts are a sheer waste and a big drain on you. This concept in electrical engineering, if on switching on, the bulb doesn't go, whether coal is mined, whether it is conveyed to power station, whether it is pulverized, whether it's burned in boiler, whether steam is generated, whether generator moves, where power is generated, switchyard is there, transmission lines are there, distribution lines are there, your whole house has electric connection, but when you switch on the light, the bulb doesn't go. All the things are sheer waste. and stand still, so-called as it, unless they are able to give the performance. And it is a big change comprehension level, not easy. But as a small level, at an organization, we can do. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Right. So just a quick reminder, we have crossed the 10:57 time.
Emotionally yours, don't hurt emotions.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
You invited me, I did not invite you. You say, please speak, and then say, please keep shut. How do I do that? So that is why I said, when my time starts, 10:57, and my time ends. Okay? And this is the last slide that I have to say. Thank you very much. If there is any question, you can raise later. PowerPoint.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Krishna Kumar, for your kind words. It was really motivational and also insightful. And now I would like to invite the chief guest of the event, Professor KRS Murthy, former director, IIM Bangalore, to deliver his keynote address on the theme of the conference. Over to Professor KRS Murthy. So you're not audible. We'll just give us a minute, sir. We'll just connect the audio. We are putting the slides. Can we have the audio from sir, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You are audible. Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank Professor Shailendra Singh and KK for inviting me to speak on this occasion. I'm very glad also to see Professor Arun Sahai, because we have all been associated with the SMF from inception, and the credit for this extraordinary effort should go to KK and also to Professor Arun Sahai for his extraordinary support in the early stages. What started off as a one-man enterprise has now been institutionalized, and I'm glad to see the 22nd convention today. And I would like to compliment KK for his patience, for his perseverance, for his effort to mobilize resources, overcome obstacles, and keep the costs very low, and network among a large number of institutions. I think it's a very creditable thing, and I would like to be personally grateful to Krishna Kumar for this extraordinary effort, because these such networking institutions are extremely important for anything that is impactful. If you want to make an impact, for example, in our own history, movements like the quality control would not have happened without the networking that took place in Japan. It was a movement. It was not just a technique evolved by one company. It had to reach out to entire chain of people and to every worker. And the thing happened because of such networking all across institutions, across firms, across people. So in that sense, SMF represents an extraordinary effort in a difficult environment. And I would like to thank everyone for this. Coming to the theme of the convention, Strategic Management and Entrepreneurship, a reflection on the last 3 decades and the way forward. I'd like to share my reflection. It is one person's reflection after all. If you take the last 3 decades, India is trying to converge to the kind of systems that are prevalent globally. One interesting thing would be to do a contrast with the Indian system in the last 3 decades and in the preceding 3. We could do the same thing even with the global trends in strategic management. I'll try that a little bit. Now, I may start with my personal experience. When I moved to IIM Ahmedabad from Harvard, I found that whatever I was teaching as business policy, those days it was called business policy, it did not jibe with the environment. The 1970s was all going towards state-driven economy. And we were talking about concepts of policy which were derived from an advanced market economy. I found it very, very difficult to justify that if you are not effective and efficient, you will have threat of extinction or your survival is a threat. Even that was not clear in those days because everybody was assured of his price, of his cost coverage, of his license, irrespective of quality, everything was being rationed. There was not much of marketing, there was not much of accounting. And here I was talking a lot and a great deal about policy concepts. And it was in that context that we started in IIM Ahmedabad a course on public enterprise management because the public sector was so dominant. We found that the concepts, if at all relevant to India, had to be developed by studying what is Indian, what is big in India in those days. Be that as it may, I'm just illustrating it to say that India is still in a transition, moving from a state-planned, state-driven economy to a more market-driven. The entire farmer education is an example of this transition from a state-driven system to a market-driven system. There are pluses and minuses in each. There is no all good kind of feeling with any particular system. It is more the management of the system rather than the system itself that makes it. Let me now quickly run down the contrast even globally. The changes in the last 3 decades vis-a-vis the 3 decades earlier. First slide, please. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. Thank you. Now, I'll first run through the first column of the preceding 3 decades. That is actually roughly, I might say, it is the period 1960 to 80 or something like 60, 70, and 80. And then we can take the last 3 decades of 1990 to 2020. Now, strategy in the preceding 3 decades was focused on an enterprise-wide view. That means business policy or strategy as it was called, it was looking at the enterprise as a whole. It had the owner's perspective, and the basic idea was coordinating various activities and decisions in the organization towards a particular purpose or strategy with a particular policy and allocation of resources. The strategy was divided into 2 parts, formulation and implementation. It was not that they were disconnected, but for the sake of implementation, it was formulation and implementation. Formulation was intellectual and very integrative. Next slide, please. And vertically integrated and diversification strategy. This was the kind of classification there was. Apart from family business and small enterprise, Generally, we were looking at very large vertically integrated organizations such as oil industry, or from exploration to marketing, refining, marketing, retailing, to diversification strategies. I don't want to go through with all the authors, which some of which Krishna Kumar has done. The basic authors during these days were Chandler, the extraordinary book on strategy and structure, Ansoff's strategy, and towards the end, towards the 1979, came Porter. Porter put in a very different perspective. While the earlier perspectives were inside out, looking at the environment and formulating policies within the organization, Porter looked the other way. He came from the industrial organization structure performance view and looked at the strategies. And you might say therein started a big change in terms of inside out versus outside in strategies. Next slide, please. Now, if you see the subsequent years, James Bryan's Quinn was an important change point. What Quinn said was that formulation is a very long-term, a very quick cycle. I can formulate a strategy by a strategic retreat or by intellectually thinking about what is appropriate. But implementation is a very long cycle. A lot of things keep changing and the organization also changes. So you cannot treat formulation and implementation and think that you can persist with whatever you thought, irrespective of what's happening. So Quinn introduced the idea of incremental strategic change, basically with feedback loops from what is happening. Explore the accuracy of our assumptions and loop back, feedback loop into the strategy. So in other words, formulation and implementation were continuing cycles of iteration. And therein the idea of strategic management, you might say, was initiated. So when we were discussing or teaching in 70s, it was business policy. Course 1 was formulation. Course 2 was implementation. And what Porter did was to make it a little more analytical, from being intuitive, personal, leadership-based, with preferences, risk preferences. He brought it, the compulsions arising out of strategic competitive forces. I won't go into the details, everybody knows the 5 competitive forces shaping strategy. So he categorized strategies into generic and niche strategies, differentiation and all. Next slide, please. Go back. Please go back. Slide 1, please. 1. Can we go back? Next. Now I'll go to the recent 3 decades as opposed to the preceding 3. The major impact in the last 3 decades is that of the digital revolution. What the digital revolution has done is to break the value chain. Entire integrated value chains have been broken up into bits and pieces. And entry barriers have been lowered. So you see a lot of entrepreneurship and ventures and startups coming up. The full impact of the IT is yet to be realized. It's a lot of artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, Internet of Things, all that taking place. What it has done is has a serious impact on both operational work as well as the administrative decisions. Krishna Kumar, I briefly saw the interview mention of the three pyramids with strategy at the top, administrative decisions and operations at the bottom. But what IT has done is to pretty much push the strategic management to a thin layer on top, with IT taking over the bottom two layers. The second change in the last 3 decades is the intensity of multiple stakeholders. In the earlier 3 decades, as I said, it was owner's perspective and coordination. But in the last 3 decades, there are a lot of regulators who have a serious impact on strategy formulation, implementation of strategic management. This includes environmental lobbies, regulators. The recent crisis has also highlighted the importance of the lenders in the formulation of strategy. So the business ecosystem is changing quite a bit as a result of IT and the multiple stakeholders and the societal demands on the organizations of strategic management. What it has done is to make the owners and the organizational capital become orchestrators of strategy rather than either vertically integrated or conglomerate style operations. They are kind of operating on parts, trying to control the basic core of the organization. Next slide, please. You can interrupt me and ask any questions. Anybody, please feel free. So the separation of the physical and the virtual has affected marketing, as you know, quite a bit. E-commerce, retail. So the impact of it has been quite a lot of unpredictability and fluidity in the competitive forces. So the life cycle of a strategy has become very short. You can expect sudden surprises coming up in your thinking, in your what Peter Drucker called the theory of business. Your theory of business itself can be unsettled by one innovative startup. If you recall, Peter Drucker used the term theory of business in the context of IBM. IBM, because it depended on hardware, couldn't recognize the revolution that was taking place in software. Of course, you know, the disruptive technologies, and Clayton Christensen has done quite a bit to show the impact of that. Next slide, please. So, as I said, the services have become very important in the GDP as a result of this. Operational management has become deconnected or disjointed with the administrative part. Our databases have become enormous. Mergers and acquisitions have become acquired sudden importance because of this kind of a thing where the big organization cannot afford to ignore any innovative business theory, unsettling type of startup. Another important change that is taking place is between cooperation and competition. There is a little bit of that kind. It started in the earlier 3 decades, but what it has done now is to make R&D as a sourcing of knowledge rather than doing everything under the roof. Early, like a librarian. A librarian earlier used to keep a catalog and give you the book that you wanted and also refer you to other books. But today he sits on a list of links and helps you with all kinds of ways of handling and getting around with it. Similarly, R&D is looking at the sourcing of knowledge, whether it is coming from a startup, which one to cooperate with, locate yourself close to the research laboratories, like the COVID-19 of Pfizer, a collaboration between a small startup and a big company. This kind of an example, so that R&D is not looking at a highly insulated research laboratory where all secrets are stored, but R&D is becoming some kind of a strategic idea base to help mergers, acquisitions, and cooperation and competition. Next slide, please. Now the way forward, if there are no questions, then I will move to the next part, the way forward. Please feel free to ask any questions. Okay. The way forward. So as I raise the question, is the scope of strategic management shrinking? That's the first kind of question I have in mind. As the structured IT-based operations, logistics, including marketing, is expanding. What is the scope for strategic management? I'm not saying strategic management will disappear or something, but I think strategic management has to reinvent itself in the context of the IT revolution. Now, what I find interesting, maybe one angle that the strategic management researchers can consider is the researching of risks and implications of this excessive dependence on automated systems everywhere, including in decision making. Now there is an argument that is coming that human decision making is far inferior to machine-based, artificial intelligence-based decision making, because the number of errors that humans can make is much larger than the mistakes that actually the AI will make, or some deep learning would make, or something. Obviously, AI and DL are becoming smarter and smarter, but does that reduce the scope for human-based strategic management? So I was thinking that it's important to look at the risks associated with IT-based operations. Similarly, there are a lot of dependencies that are increasing both at the micro and the macro level in the organization of enterprises. These dependencies are taken for granted when the going is good, but you never know the black swan events that come up every now and then for organizations. So strategic management may be interested in looking at these dependencies and developing contingency or other plans or backup or fail-safe methods. Now there is interesting, the basis for categorization of firms, as I said. From the inside out, they're based on strategic, like Richard Ronald categorized the strategy firms based on strategy, related diversification, unrelated diversification, and quite a few of those kinds of things. And then BCG and McKinsey tried to categorize firms based on the attractiveness of the industry and, you know, the dogs and the stars and milk, milking and things of that kind of boxes of 2x2 matrices. Now, is it time to find new categorization given the unpredictability and the complexity of the environment? And then develop strategies for each category. Next slide, please. New categorization of firms and strategies is a way forward. Second thing is to see if we can take an integrated perspective of how the human and the IT-based systems interact in a more integrated way in each category. Now, in terms of research, we were looking at cases as a way of understanding. And a good case would have multiple perspectives on the issue or on a problem which you have chosen to write a case on. But given the break or the parts of the value chain which are scattered across different countries or different geographies, and the operation of IT, whether it is possible to look at analyzing and integrating the data and experience from multiple sources and from multiple sections of the value chain. In other words, don't take a look at organization per se, but look at the ecosystem of that chain as a whole. I mean, it's a thought. The benefit from such integration would be that you will see the implications of one on the other, as well as the changing context. Next, please. So I'm also thinking whether we can use the classroom, because it's becoming very difficult to write a case, an integrated case, and whether we can use the students to do this kind of collection of strategy at different parts, putting them together to see the develop hypothesis for research. And finally, I think in the teaching of strategic management, it is extremely important now to focus on the larger purpose rather than the bottom line. Already, the 3 Ps, planet, earth, profits, people, multiple things are coming. It's not just the owners alone. Multiple stakeholders are already kind of driving into the organization. But if you want enduring strategies to be developed, I think leadership has to have some larger purposes than simply a bottom line or financial. And finally, given that so much of risk and uncertainty is all around us, I think it's important that leadership takes decision making into a level of higher consciousness than simply the immediate consequences. And already the stage 5 leadership and all that, concentrating on humility, lack of egotistic decision making is already being put on the wayside. I think India has a great role to play in developing leadership with a higher consciousness. Thank you. That's all I wanted to share with you. This is my reflection of strategic management in the last 3 decades. And thank you for this opportunity. Yeah. Arun, Professor Sahai, yeah, please.
Thank you, Professor K.R.S. Murthy, for those kind words. In fact, it was quite encouraging to hear from you the last 3 decades way forward. Thank you very much, sir. Now we have come to the Thanksgiving. I'll request Professor Subhashri to give a vote of thanks. Professor Subhashri.
Rohit.
Yes, sir.
This for I had made for this convention, but physically I am not there. This was
Right, sir.
okay. This is for you and Professor Challenging.
Right, sir. Can we take a screenshot, please? Screenshot for all the people who are on there in the video. Yes, sir. We are taking the screenshot.
Yes,
Professor Arun, I wanted to say something. Professor Arun Sai has got his finger raised.
Sure. Diksha, you can also take a picture, photo of the screen. Yeah.
Please ask Professor Arun Sahai to unmute. He is saying something. Professor Arun Sahai
Okay,
is saying something.
I have unmuted. Rohit, just give me a second. Professor Murthy, you wanted some question. I got very curious about it. That yes, we all studied about stakeholder and total strategy was based on shareholder. Today we have moved to stakeholder. You have been on so many boards. I have also been in so many boards of companies. And still today we find that we only talk about profit, profit, profit. The moment you take care of all stakeholders, the company fares better, the strategy, I don't know. Sometimes the stakeholders have got totally conflicting interests. Under those conflicting conditions, what do you say uh, which should get precedence in making a strategy?
This is not, it's a kind of all strategy is a balancing multiple conflicting interests and perspectives. So we need to balance this, and it is happening in a very subtle or interesting way. Well, just today's paper, for example, Wistron is being put on probation by Apple. So it just shows that at least large companies who want to think in the long term in a very large way are gradually shifting into tighter control across the chain. And similarly, the companies which are carbon neutral seem to be doing better than the companies which are not. And because of the recent troubles in the financial field or the bankruptcies, many companies are trying to reduce their debt, which is good. In a sense, then you have got a little more say to yourself as to how you want to manage. And we don't know about the long-term survival of these organizations. But I think the multiple forces are definitely impacting much harder today than they were in the earlier years. And the companies which are responding are doing better than companies which are not doing as well in balancing these interests.
Thank you, sir. I shall discuss this further offline. Rohit has to manage time.
Thank you, sir, for that quick question and answer round. Now I will request Professor Subhashri Mukherjee from the Strategic Management area, IIM Ranchi, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning, all. I feel honored and privileged to propose a vote of thanks on this special day. On behalf of the Institute, I convey my regards and heartfelt thanks to our chief guest, Professor K.R.S. Murthy, for accepting the invitation in spite of his busy schedule and enlightening us by taking stock of the strategic management and entrepreneurship in the last 30 years and showing us the way forward. Sir, as a token of appreciation, we would like to felicitate you with a souvenir. We will be sending.
Thank you.
I would also like to thank our Honorable Director, Sir, Professor Shailendra Singh, for being the constant support and inspiration to host this convention. Our heartfelt thanks to Professor Krishna Kumar for giving an excellent coverage on strategic choices for making India self-reliant. Professor Krishna Kumar is also a founding member of Strategic Management Forum, and we thank him for starting this convention, which is one of a kind in the area of strategic management. We would like to acknowledge our gratitude by felicitating him with a souvenir. A very big thanks to Professor Sunil Shukla for making EDII the knowledge partner of this conference. We also thank Professor A. Sahai for guiding us throughout the journey for hosting the conference. And thanks to all the honorable delegates who blessed us with their virtual presence. And last but not the least, a big thanks to our friends from media and the audience, of course. And my apologies, sorry I missed. As a token of appreciation, we're also felicitating Professor Shukla and Professor A. Sahai.
Thank you.
With this, we conclude the inaugural session. I request all to please raise for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Okay, this concludes the inaugural session. The first plenary session will be starting in 5 minutes from now. Thank you all.